finally today, continuing our forgiveness, today we're going to forgive Bobby Clarke. And I know this is another one of those controversial ones. And again, we need to get that negativity out. We need to get the good karma flowing. And we're not forgiving Bobby Clarke as a player. Bobby Clarke as a player was one of the greatest to ever do it. Won the 2 Stanley Cups for the Flyers and all of that, accolades and everything that goes with that. Not taking anything away from Bobby Clarke, the player. However, we're going to forgive Bobby Clarke, the general manager. And there's so much to get on him from a general manager standpoint. It wasn't all negative, though. I mean, he made the playoffs every year, I think, except for one as the general manager. Took them to 3 Stanley Cup finals, 5 Eastern Conference final appearances. But unfortunately, they never won. And a lot of times they failed because of Bobby Clarke's mindset. He was stuck in those old school Broad Street bully ways. Constantly changing coaches. Never gave a guy to set up a program, as they like to call it, and really get into a flow. And ironically enough, a lot of those coaches that he kind of cycled through were a lot of his former teammates and guys that he was friends with and guys that were a part of the Flyers organization. He would always give up on young players a lot, I felt, too soon, and bring in these aging vets who were past their prime but had the big name. I'm thinking like Paul Coffey, Adam Oates came in here, and guys that, like I said, 10 years earlier, 5 years earlier, would have been great additions to the Flyers, but it was just kind of too little, too late. But it was all about the Broad Street bully way. He never really adapted to the new NHL. He wanted big, physical guys, and we saw it all the time as the NHL became more about speed and different things like that. That's really why they lost to the Red Wings in '97. Was they had a team that was built to just beat people up and overpower them, and Scotty Bowman of the Red Wings was like, no, we're going to finesse and do all that. And that was the biggest knock about Bobby Clarke. Had his issues finding goalies. Again, guys that were kind of maybe past their prime. He had some issues later on in his career with Ron Hextall when Ron Hextall was general manager somewhere else. But of course, with Bobby Clarke, the biggest thing we're going to forgive him for is the whole Eric Lindros fiasco. And I'll be the first to say it's not 100% on Bobby Clarke. However, I think Bobby Clarke did let his ego get in the way. I think you can make the argument that Bobby Clarke felt threatened, his legacy as the greatest Flyer ever, when Lindros started to put up those great numbers and everything. But I do think a lot of times he made things public to try to embarrass him. Now, Eric Lindros' parents, Bonnie and what was her name? Carla Lindros? No, Bonnie and Carl Lindros. Sorry. They were his agents, and they certainly played a big role in this as well. But, I mean, Bobby Clarke almost killed Eric Lindros. There's this story about Keith Jones finding him, like, passed out in a tub, and Bobby Clarke wanted him to go on a plane. The pressure would have killed him when he had a collapsed lung. But Bobby, today, to give the Eagles all the good mojo and all the good karma they need, we're going to forgive you for your tenure as Flyers general manager, forgive you for the Eric Lindros fiasco, forgive you for being stubborn and stuck in your ways and trying to make the Flyers a square peg fit into a round hole in the NHL at the time. Forgive you for bringing in guys 5 years past their prime, thinking they were going to be the difference makers. And most importantly, going to forgive you for not bringing home a Stanley Cup as a general manager. Again, not taking anything away from him as a player, but I think it's time we kind of, in the middle of our rebuild here, let go of the Bobby Clarke era as general manager, chalk it up to just experience, forgive him, move on, and get those positive vibes going.